Part 12. It's Wires All the Way Down. Cat eyed the Fuji chronometer strapped to the inside of her wrist and slouched deeper into the hard plastic rose seat, facing a column of spinning dryers. 11:46 a.m. It wasn't like Mortimer Reed to be late. She thrummed her fingers and absently swung up the volume on the jet-black tune, playing through her auditory implant. Nearby, a tattooed kid sat on a washing machine, popping his chewing gum loudly and staring at her. She could practically hear his cyber eyes zooming in on her low-cut shirt. She sighed and pointedly looked in every direction but his. This early in the day, Stig's Quick Wash was about as crowded as the Barrens after curfew. A pair of elderly women folded whites at chipped Duraplast table and bickered loudly about the mayoral race. A few seats down from Cat, a wiry elven man scrubbed desperately at the breast pocket of his suit. Despite Cat's efforts to ignore him, the love-starved fanboy leapt down from the washing machine, puffed up with a disgusting supply of youthful courage and adrenaline. Cat rolled her eyes and continued to bob her head, bracing herself for the conversation. But instead of uttering what would no doubt have been a dull, stammering introduction, the boy stopped short and stared through the storefront window, where two men stood, dressed in dark clothes. Cat's hand went to her satchel. One of the men was thin and carried a laundry bag. The other was a muscled-up Amerindian who moved with the robotic stutter of wired reflexes. Cat recognized him immediately. The pair of runners stepped through the door. Cat relaxed slightly, but left her hand where it was, wrapped around the butt of her gun. "Hoy, Joshua, that bag for me?" She pointed her chin in the direction of the second man. Joshua's vat-grown muscles tensed and relaxed unnaturally, making his toothy grin appear feral. "Long time, Cat. Good to see you in one piece." She smiled, eyeing the fresh chrome at his temples. Puckered surgical scars trailed down his cheeks. Joshua was like most street samurai she knew. Peel back the top layer of skin, and it's wires all the way down. "Good to see you're keeping up with the latest wear. Who's the new meat?" Joshua watched Cat's hand twitch inside of her satchel. His smile never faltered. "He's a chummer, soycaf. Cat, this is Bill D4. Bill D4 was lanky, and brooding in a way that reminded her of Still Flight. Her attention moved from the man to the rumpled laundry bag he carried. Her package looked like dreck. She took it and made a note to hit up Reed for a discount next time she needed to secure stolen goods. "So where's Mortimer?" "Couldn't make the trip, so he sent us." "Couldn't?" Cat cocked an eyebrow. "Wouldn't." Joshua laughed. Bill D4 stepped back and looked around the laundromat, while Cat pulled out a switchblade and cut open the protective tape around the mouth of the bag. She peered inside and frowned. "Feels light. Was he able to make the adjustments we discussed?" Joshua eyed the bag. "There were some disagreements with the manufacturer, but we made sure the proper adjustments were made." There were 5 dock wagon ID cards stacked on top of the 4 black dock wagon uniforms, neatly folded at the top of the bag. She pulled them out to reveal a 5th uniform crumpled at the bottom. It was gray and larger than the rest. Flecks of blood dotted a sleeve and collar. Cat turned to the 2 runners with a pained expression. "You know this means I'll have to wash it." "Well, it looks like we met you in the right place then." Bill D4 began to laugh and turned to leave. Joshua tried his best to fight his cyber enhancements and smile. He looked like he would rip your head off instead. He turned to the bubblegum boy and winked, and Cat could hear the boy gag and begin to choke. An hour later, Cat caught up with her crew at Pike Place Market, where the smell of fish singed the air. They were having real meat burgers at an outdoor restaurant overlooking Puget Sound, and grinning at the tourists who walked by. "Spending your cut already?" Cat grinned at the collection of runners. Kitsune offered Cat a chair, and the Decker accepted it. She cuddled her satchel in her front lap, and offered each of her runners a smile in return. "Well, uniforms are in. We can make the dock wagon run tonight, before we get Carter. Or we can wait till after, and reduce the number of hours the vehicle is missing before we use it." Hegimon said, "Shouldn't we talk about whether or not we're doing this at all?" They fell into silence when a waitress came by and took Cat's order. Cat asked for a burger, a glass of milk, and an empty bowl. When the bowl came, she set it on the ground and poured the milk into it. Then she opened her satchel. Fluff uncurled herself and took a cautious peek. Seeing the runners, she leapt out of the bag and onto the floor where she lapped at the bowl of milk. Cat continued, "What if I told you, if we make this next goal, I can hire an adept?" All around the table there were nods and murmurs of assent. Hegimon beamed. "Well, you'd have my vote to continue." "No sweat, chummers. We've stretched ourselves pretty far. But if we stretch for one last goal, I can get us the person we need to finish the job right." Cat laid out the plan quietly. The 4 runners would enter the nearby dock wagon clinic dressed in uniform and carrying ID cards. Cat's job was to hack the human resources server and build in their backstory as active employees. She splayed out 4 new dock wagon employee cards like a poker hand. The 5th she held onto. JT snatched the one with his image and asked, "Do you mind telling us how you thought up these names? Because if you think I look like a Damien Lockrow, we're going to have problems." "Damien is a strong name. It suits you." "It sounds like a Trid romance hero." Cat tapped the 5th card she still held face down. "No, Storm Brown scans like a Trid romance hero, but it fits our prospective adept." Hegimon leaned in. "You have someone in mind?" Cat laughed. "You couldn't have been much fun at Christmas. Wait until the job is done to unwrap your present, Hegimon." He groaned and buried his teeth into his hamburger. Kitsune sighed deeply. "I could get used to being Nicole Holland. It would be a pity to dump these identities after the run." Cat agreed, flashing her own identity card. "I could get used to being Jennifer Moore, too. But if we get past Autine's security with these sins, they'll be as dead as that dragon. It'd be wise to get as far away from them and here as soon as possible." "I'm thinking Hong Kong," Hegimon mumbled, looking at Kitsune. JT spoke up first. "Nah, Berlin." Cat grimaced. "From one dragon to another, you mean?" He shrugged. "I hear there's good work in Berlin." The 4 shadow runners lapsed into silence, each considering the implications. In a few hours, they were going to take on a dragon. Nothing could be the same after that. The silence stretched on as the waitress returned with Cat's meal, and then left again. Finally, Hegimon cleared his throat. He waved his identity card in the air with one hand, and raised his glass with the other. "To Will Oprisco. After tonight, you'll work for Dock Wagon, and tomorrow you just might get to kill a dragon." They clinked their glasses together and drank.